sailing to the blue. Loyal sons of the 99th, brave and tried and true, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99. Rat-tat, down in flames they go. Withering fire from the 99, sent them down below, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99. Joystick back, sailing to the blue. Loyal sons of the 99th, brave and tried and true, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99. Rat-tat, down in flames they go. Withering fire from the 99, sent them down below, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99. Joystick back, sailing to the blue. Loyal sons of the 99th, brave and tried and true, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99. Rat-tat, down in flames they go. Withering fire from the 99, sent them down below, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99. And true, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99. Rat-tat, down in flames they go. Withering fire from the 99, sent them down below, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis light, fight, 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 fighting 99.
Welcome to the African American History and Aviation Career Day, presented by Tuskegee Airmen National Historical Museum. I'm Shamalia Willis, student pilot at Detroit City Airport. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We would like to thank our sponsor, Wayne County Community College, and welcome Carver STEM Academy, Academy of Warren, and all that are joining us this afternoon. Today we've invited speaker Mark Vaught, military pilot, and our very special guest, Lieutenant Colonel Harry Stewart, an original Tuskegee Airman who fought in combat in World War II. There's a plethora of careers that we've made available to you on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. Take notes and feel free to participate in our Q&A immediately following the speakers. Thank you for joining us for this African American History and Aviation Career Day.
Hello, my name is Dr. Brian Smith. I'm the president of the Tuskegee Airmen National Museum. The museum has been doing African American History and Aviation Career Week since 1980. The Career Week was designed to introduce young people to careers in aviation and aerospace science. This year we're doing the Career Week virtually, and we're producing modules that highlight the career of an aviation professional. These modules can be found on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. To find the links to our YouTube channel and Facebook page, go to TuskegeeMuseum.org. That's our website. You'll find information about our programs, the history of the Tuskegee Airmen, and how to donate if you're so inclined. The museum has 3 locations in Detroit. Our largest facility is at Detroit City Airport. We have 12 aircraft that are used to teach young people how to fly. Our primary exhibit is at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. You would call them for a exhibit slot or a tour slot to go and visit. The 3rd location is historic Fort Wayne, where we have our research facility and the parade grounds where we fly drones and launch rockets. The programs that the Tuskegee Airmen Museum conducts are an aviation flight academy, where we actually teach young people how to fly an airplane. They can earn a pilot certificate through that program. Model Rocketry is the program where we teach young people about aerospace science. As you know, a rover was landed on Mars recently, If you're in elementary school, you will have the opportunity to go to Mars. You can become an astronaut, and we will help you start that career here at the museum. The next program is drones. Drones are being used in many industries: construction, pipeline survey, law enforcement, nature programming. We will teach you how to fly a drone, and you can actually earn a drone certificate with us. With a certificate, you can fly drones commercially. If you're younger than 16, you can learn to fly a drone and possibly participate in drone competitions where drones are raced. The next program is maintenance familiarization. The major airlines are going to need mechanics in the near future, and we'll get your maintenance career started. We'll familiarize you with airplane maintenance, and then recommend you to a facility that can give you your maintenance certificates. The programs are lots of fun. We have them on Thursday evenings mostly, and we invite you to come and join us. Again, go to our website, Tuskegee Museum, for more information. One of our partners in the African American History and Aviation Career Week is Wayne County Community College District. At Wayne County Community College, you can actually start your aviation career. Wayne County Community College is a 2-year institution where you can take the prerequisites for a 4-year degree if you're so inclined. If you would rather choose a trade, Wayne County Community College has several. For instance, welding is a specialized field in aerospace, and Wayne County Community College can get you started on your welding career. Airlines and airports need security, they need firefighters, and they need people who can take care of buildings, general maintenance. Wayne County Community College has these trades where you can get certificated and apply for jobs in those areas. So we thank Wayne County Community College for the years of partnering with the Tuskegee Airmen National Museum, and we hope you check them out for the start of your college career. A link to their website and a video talking about the college is on our website. So we hope you enjoy the modules, we hope you enjoy the day, and join us for youth programming here at Detroit City Airport. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, you're going to see the video?
What we're going to do is that I'm going to keep asking you these things. So from 0 is feeling really bad and sick. 10 is the best feeling you've ever had. All right, what are you feeling right about now?
I'm feeling kind of nervous, but like I'm going to have a lot of fun.
5's a prop, and that sort of pulls you up into the air, and it makes air go over the wing. And, well, this glider, this engine, you need oil to keep it cool. Okay? And you're locked in. Grab this, there's the stick, all right, and pull it back towards you and go right, turn. And then what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to be talking to you, and there'll be certain times that you can't talk to me, but most of the time you can.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our live broadcast of African American History and Aviation Career Week. I'd like to introduce at this time Major Mark Vaught, who is a KC-135 instructor at Selfridge Air National Guard Base. Mark Vaught, welcome to the program. Please share your story with the young people. We seem to have lost Mark Vaught for some strange reason. See if we can find him in the studio.
Test.
We'll add him to the stream. You're there.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Good morning. I am Major Mark Vaught. I am a pilot out at I'm a KC-135 pilot out at Selfridge Air National Guard Base. It's about 30 nautical miles northeast of Detroit. I've been in the military for about 20 years. I've been flying for 18 of those. So got a long history in that with my military career for that. I started flying when I was about 17 years old. My first job in the military was actually in the Army. I was a truck driver. But at the time I was going to college I was going to college while I was in the Guard. So you can do that. You can join the National Guard and attend college. And I'll talk a little bit about that here coming question and answer time. So after I got out the Army, I switched over to the Air National Guard, where I started flying. I was a career enlisted aviator, so I held the position of a flight engineer. And basically what that means is I was a system expert. So everything that went wrong with the plane, from the electronic system to the hydraulics to pneumatics, I was your subject matter expert. I did that for about 4 years while I was finishing up my degree. I finished up at Eastern Michigan University. I got a degree in aviation management. And earned my commission within that same unit and went to pilot training shortly after. I've flown 2 different planes as a pilot for the Air Force. One is a KC-135, and the other is a UAV, or unmanned aerial vehicle, the MQ-9. The primary role for the KC-135 was mainly in-flight refueling. So we can refuel the majority of our aircraft fleet, to include Navy and even some of our foreign allies. Another role that the KC-135 held is air med and air evac missions. And what that means is, if you got a sick patient, we can take patients out and take them from one place to another, get them to the hospital that they need to go to. And the last one we do is light cargo. KC-135 isn't really designed to carry a lot of heavy cargo, but mainly just for troops equipment, like their flak jackets or their helmets or rifles and things like that. And the MQ-9, that was a good tour. I did that for about 5 years. Our primary mission with that was just intelligence, surveillance, and radar. And then sometimes we did the close air support for our troops on the ground. My current job at Selfridge is I'm a plans officer and also work in training. So I'm heavily involved with the training of the squadron. A lot of our new lieutenants that come back from pilot training, I'll develop their training plans and I'll go out and fly with them. Scary, but as they get older and as they get more experience, they become very good. The KC-135, just a little bit of specs about it. Let's see, service ceiling for that is about 42,000 feet. So anything higher than that, you don't want to take it up there. The plane just doesn't perform very well. We're capable of carrying a little bit over 200,000 pounds of gas, so what that equates to about maybe 50,000 gallons. So it can hold pretty much in one tank of our gas, we can pretty much refuel your car for about 3 to 4 years. So just kind of think about that. My future career endeavors include, Dr. Smith mentioned it earlier, I plan to go commercial. Haven't really decided yet which airline I want will be my preference, or if I could do cargo, either FedEx or UPS. I currently have about 3,000 hours. I've been flying pretty much over half my life. Like I said, I started when I was 17 years old, and I actually got my start right here at City Airport, right down the street. It was in a program much like this. So if you're interested in joining the military, it's a great way of life. I've had very, very, very good successes with just planning my family and being able to travel with them through the use of the military. And the benefits outweigh anything that you can have from a regular job. So if you're thinking about doing that, come up with some questions and I'll be more than happy to discuss them with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Major Vaught, for that. Inspiring account of your career. We look forward to the question and answer period coming up next. So next, I'd like to bring up Harry Stewart to the studio and have him tell you some of the history of the Tuskegee Airmen and then some of his personal story. Mr. Harry Stewart.
Hello there. Well, my desire to fly, I guess it started about 80 years ago. At that time, there was not too much of an opportunity to learn to fly. It was quite a novel thing at that time there. But in 1941, World War II came along, and it gave a whole bunch of youth chance to go ahead and go into the service and get their wings and fly in the military, which I did. I'd like to say that Dr. Smith, that introductory film that you showed is really terrific. That's the first time I've seen it, and I think it is absolutely splendid, and it makes me go back to my youth when we did not have the opportunities that you presented on the film there. Is that I used to go down to the local airport and watch the planes take off and land and fantasize about being a pilot and flying, but that's about as far as I got in the air until I actually went into the military service, which today, and as Major Vaught can certify, is that it's a wonderful opportunity there to go ahead, a splendid opportunity to get your wings and get yourself into the aviation field. And from there, as Major Vaught was saying, is that you can probably progress from there to going into the airlines if you so desire. So I just want to say that there are opportunities today, military and civilian, and with organizations like the Tuskegee Airmen Historical Museum, which can give you a tremendous opportunity to become acquainted with aviation, the field of aviation, and pursue an avocation in that field there. I went into the service in 1941, as I said before, and it was at that time that the Tuskegee Airmen, it wasn't called the Tuskegee Airmen then, it was given a military designation of the 332nd Fighter Group, was formed. But it was a chance for any number of African Americans, youth, to get into the service there. I took the examination for entrance into the Army Air Corps. I passed it, and at 18 years old, or around 18 years old, I was sent to Tuskegee to Alabama to do my training. The training started off in a small 175 horsepower open cockpit plane called the PT-19 Cornell, and from there I graduated to a more advanced aircraft, which was called the BT-15. It was enclosed canopy and 450 horsepower, and then the last phase of the training, I flew the North American AT-6 aircraft that's still flying around today, and that was 650 horsepower. It had a variable pitch propeller, and it acted very much like a modern day fighter plane. From there, I graduated and got my wings, second lieutenant's bars, and my wings, and I started flying fighters. The first fighter that I flew was the P-40 Warhawk. The next one was the P-47 Thunderbolt. And then I went overseas in the combat. As a combat pilot, I was assigned to the 332nd Fighter Group, where it's known as the Red Tails at the time. And our job was to escort bombers, namely B-17s and B-24s, to their targets and back. And our duty was to protect those bombers, to keep them protected from enemy fighters. If an enemy fighter should try to attack them, it was our job to go ahead and engage these enemy fighters there and keep them from shooting down the bombers. The fighter plane that I flew only had one person in it. It was the pilot, it was myself. And I did all the jobs. I did the flying of the plane, I did the navigation, I did the radio work, I did the aerial gunnery, all of that type of thing. The bombers, unlike the fighters there were 10 people aboard those bombers there. So it was quite an investment the Air Corps had made into those bomber flights, because any bomber that was shot down, that was not only the plane that was shot down, but it was 10 men in that plane who could evidently be killed. So it was quite a responsibility for us Tuskegee Airmen to have to go ahead and protect those bombers in the plane. We flew at a high altitude. We flew as high as maybe 35,000, little above 35,000 feet to protect these bombers. And the ranges that we took, well, we flew with the bombers from Italy to Berlin, and that was a 1,600-mile round trip, 800 miles each way. For the fighters, it took us about 6.5 hours in the plane there, and that was considered a mission at the time. The plane that we flew was really a delightful fighter. It was the P51 Mustang, and there you see the red tail there, and it was about a 1,500 horsepower fighter, but it was a very, 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 very fine fighter, and very, very, very maneuverable. And I flew 43 missions in this, and I got in a few dogfights with the enemy planes. And then the war was over. I came back home. When I came back home, the 332nd Fighter Group was then stationed in Columbus, Ohio, in Lockbourne Air Force Base in Columbus, Ohio. And their job was to go ahead and continue to keep themselves at top peak as fighter pilots are concerned. I guess the notable thing about them in 1949 is that the Air Corps had a fighter gunnery meet. It was similar to the Navy's Top Gun meet, where they had a team of pilots from each fighter group in the United States that competed against one another to see which was the best team that there was in the United States among the fighter groups. The event took place out in the desert near Las Vegas, Nevada, and it was 10 days of furious flying and dive bombing and strafing and aerial gunnery and rocketry. And when it was all over, believe it or not, the top team in the United States was the Tuskegee Airmen. And that was the top team that they had. It was an event that had 3 men on each team that they had. And as I said, the Tuskegee Airmen won that event. 1949, 1950, I decided to leave the service, and I wanted to see what chances I had to further my aviation career as a civilian. And I was not that fortunate. Time was not ripe at that time. And unfortunately, because of prejudice that they had at the time there, I was not accepted in 2 of the airlines that I applied for. But happy to say that it was not a decade after that I had applied there, that the first African-American pilot became an airline pilot with one of the airlines. And today we have, I think, African-Americans flying on every airline that we have in the country here. The last thing I'd like to say is that when I retired, and I retired some years ago, I guess I was in my 60s, but around the time that I was in my 80s, the film that you just saw on the historical museum, they were acquired 12, I should say, they acquired 3 gliders from the Air Corps at the time there. They were given to the museum and they were in flyable condition. They didn't have anyone that could fly them at the time when they were delivered to the airport, so I decided to go back and dust off my license for flying, and I took some instructions, and I got my commercial pilot's license in flying gliders, motor gliders, and you saw a picture of them on the screen that they showed at the beginning of the program here, and you saw the little girl in the aircraft there. Well, there were times that I used to take the youngsters up like that also and fly them around and give them orientation to flying there. And then I got to be about, I don't know, my very late 80s, and I decided, well, maybe it's time to give up the flying now. It was a little exhausting for me. So since that time, I've enjoyed going out to the field and meeting the youngsters who have this or have taken advantage of this opportunity to train with the Historical Museum. And some of them wonderfully have, as Dr. Smith said, gotten their, not only got their wings, but are flying in the airlines today. And of course, it's not just as pilots. I mean, there are all sorts of jobs that are wonderful that you have an opportunity to get into. There's the rocketry that Dr. Smith talked about, and then there was the drones that he talked about, and you know, and also the airlines that you have, and not just jobs as pilots and operators for the drones and the rockets there, but also as engineers and just a plethora of jobs that you might want. So anyway, take advantage of it. That's what I say. Take advantage of these opportunities because they come rather rare, and they can go ahead and lead to a wonderful, happy, and fruitful life in your adulthood. Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
So thank you very much, Harry Stewart, for sharing that history with us. Now we'd like to bring up into the screen some of our students that we have on and start the question and answer period. Jaden, since you were the first one up, you'll ask the first question.
All right. So this question is for Mr. Stewart. I want to ask you, when you went overseas, what country were you stationed in?
I was stationed in Italy, in the southern part of Italy, but that was just where the base was. We flew from Italy into Central Europe. And as I had mentioned, is that I guess the furthest we flew was into Berlin, the capital of Germany at the time there. And it was a 800-mile trip each way. And it was about 6.5 hours that we were in the air there. And we were, as I said, escorting the bombers at that time. And of course, there were times that the enemy fighters would come in to try to shoot the bombers down, and we would have to try to intercept them and keep them from shooting the bombers down. So to answer your question, we flew from Italy up into Central Europe.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Would like to ask either Harry Stewart or Mr. Major Mark Vaught.
Yes, I have a question. My question is for Mr. Vaught. I want to know what led you to become like what led you to look into being an airman?
There you go.
All right. Can you hear me now? Yep. All right. Yeah, great question. What led me was the Tuskegee Airmen, actually. I mentioned that I started flying when I was about 17 years old. When I entered high school, I joined the junior ROTC program out at Henry Ford. And we routinely got visits from the Tuskegee Airmen, and just their story was very inspiring. It resonated with me. The fact that those guys endured what they endured, in the time that, the country was still segregated, the military was segregated, all the racism that they faced, and the record that they were able to hold just made it very special to me. And it was something that I wanted to do. So what the Tuskegee Airmen would do, the organization offered a program for 10 free hours and 40 hours of ground training. And what you had to do was qualify academically. So a 2.5 GPA, you had to write an essay, and you had to meet a board. So I did all those three things, and I was selected. They sent me down to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and that was when I first soloed an airplane. So it was towards the end of the program. I think it was hour maybe 8 or 9. And my instructor got out. He said, "Hey, give me 3 circuits around the pattern, 1 to a full stop," and I was hooked. So ever since then, hey, the rest has been history.
Thank you for that answer, Major Vaught. Does anyone else have a question for either of these distinguished gentlemen?
I have a question for both of them, both Mr. Stewart and Mr. Vaught. How long did it take you to get your wings?
Sir, you can go first.
Yeah, they have the regular program in the Air Corps, and it was about 10 months that it took of flying to get my wings there. There were 4 phases in the Cadet Corps that they had at the time there. There was pre-flight. You actually didn't fly during pre-flight. It was 2.5 months. You took a number of courses, though, that trained you to do things that you were going to have to do in the air, like navigation and radio, those type of things, map reading, those type of things. And then the flying phase was 3 flying phases of 2.5 months each. And that was, as I had mentioned before, that was pre-flight. And then you go to a more advanced airplane in basic, and then a more advanced airplane in advanced there. But it took me about actual flying. It took me about 10 months to get my second lieutenant's bars and my wings.
And for me, it was a little bit different. The Air Force undergraduate pilot training program is about 52 weeks. So the first 6 weeks is much of the same, like Colonel Stewart was saying. It's about academics. So it's the theory of flight, what the aircraft is going to do, what plane you're getting ready to fly. And then you start off in the T-37, T-37B aircraft. It's an aircraft designed by Cessna, twin engine, dual seated. And in that one, you get your introduction into just basic aircraft handling. Then you move on to aerobatics. Then you move to navigation, and then finally formation. And that program is about 6 months. You spend about that. So I got about 119 hours in that. And then you move on to a more complex aircraft. So we flew the T-1A next, and that's the equivalent to like a Learjet, or smaller Lear. So the whole program is about 52 weeks or a year, so a year long.
All right, thank you for those answers. We have a question in the chat line, and it's from Colonel Davenport. He asked for both Harry Stewart and Major Vaught. Throughout your career, what has been your biggest challenge? And we'll go with Major Vaught this time first.
Oh, wow. I would say my biggest challenge throughout my career, it's not really been for me. I would say it's really been for my family. I've been deployed multiple times. So each deployment can range anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And I've held multiple jobs. So every time you get a different job, your deployment length is different. So not being there for my family for birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, things like that. It's just an adjustment, but it's all temporary. I mean, you don't leave every single year, and what you're doing is you're fighting for your country and you're providing service, and your family understands that. But sometimes a 5-year-old won't. So I would say that would be the biggest challenge for me.
Well, my biggest challenge, I would say, would be keeping my eye on the prize. Ever since I started the flying career there, it was my only and strongest ambition that there was, but there were pitfalls on the way. There were difficulties on the way, and I did fly during an era where there was a lot of prejudice in the not only country, but in the Air Corps itself. There were times that I had some difficulty as far as going to the next step in the flying lessons, that there were something that I might have a hard time with. And I know that when the first plane I got into, and I had a great deal of trouble coordinating, but finally I got the hang of it there. But the idea was, no matter how I was treated, no matter what difficulties I came up with, was to keep my eye on the prize. And my prize was to go ahead and learn to fly, to get my wings, and to become a pilot.
All right, thank you for that, both Major Vaught and Colonel Stewart. Does anyone else have a question? Mr. Isaiah Mason, perhaps Fred?
I see he's got one.
Isaiah Mason has put a question in the chat. It says, has the pandemic changed the way you do your job?
Yeah, for me it has, but very minimal.
Well, we didn't hear the question, Major Vaught.
Oh, the question was from Isaiah Mason. His question is, has the pandemic changed the way you do your job? And yes, it has, but very minimal impact. In the Air Force, we're still on the front line and we're still ready to go at any moment's notice. But some of the procedures have changed. For example, you're in close quarters when you're inside the cockpit. So there are measures that you have to take to protect yourselves and your crew. One of the biggest changes is actually wearing a mask when you're flying. So it's a bit annoying, but I mean, it's something that you can work through. And for our maintainers, they've been working extra hard. And I got to give it up to our maintainers, because every time we leave the flight deck, those guys are in there cleaning and they're sanitizing. And they have to have special cleaners so that they can, disinfect our instrumentation so we can see and, we can effectively do our mission and do our job.
Any other questions from anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, mine says, how do you use math, reading, and writing for your daily work?
Oh, in flight planning, we're using math, reading, and you can't, if you check NOTAMs or Notice to Airmen, every mission that we do, we spend about an hour mission planning. So, like I said, we've got we carry a lot of fuel in our plane. Sometimes we go very far. My longest mission has actually been about 13 hours in the KC-135. So we have to plan very meticulously down to the last hour of fuel. Otherwise, we can put ourselves in a really bad position. With respect to reading, you have to really get into the English language and really kind of interpret code. The NOTAMs come out in code, so does the METARs, and so do your TAF reports for your weather. So if you're not looking at that, and you add up your times wrong, hey, you can put yourself in a really bad position, because the whole world in aviation goes off of what? Zulu time, right? So depending upon what time zone you're in, it can greatly affect where you're at and where you're going to land. Central time is different than Eastern time, and if you're overseas, that time is different as well. So when you're flight planning and you're mission planning, all that stuff comes into effect. So all that stuff comes in. And even physics, knowing what's going to happen with your aircraft, with the effects of another aircraft next to you. We often fly formation in the KC-135. and you get behind a plane and you don't account for their wake turbulence. It can put you off on a different course that you don't want to be in. So everything is used in aviation. That's one of the great things about it is it's so dynamic. You're never going to have the same day in aviation. No weather day is going to be the same. No temperature is going to be the same. It may be similar, but it'll never be the same. And you're always thinking on your feet.
It's a good answer. Harry Stewart, did the Tuskegee Airmen use math? You said you were the navigator also?
Well, I mean, we did those jobs as one person, whereas the bomber, they had a navigator whose principal job was navigation. The fighter pilot, his job is doing all of those jobs at one time, not just navigation, but handling the radio, firing the guns, and doing that type of thing. But, flying is a little different, and the missions in combat are a little different then than they are today. A mission could consist of as many as 300 to 500 bombers in a group, along with another 200 or 300 fighters flying to the target to destroy the target. That's 800 aircraft flying into one designated mission on the one designated target there. Today, it doesn't take that. It could take just one airplane to go ahead and do as much damage as all of those planes did back in World War II.
That's phenomenal. The way weaponry has improved or not improved. I mean, the destructive power is so great. It's kind of sad to see. Are there any other questions from our young people?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
This is for both Mr. Vaught and Mr. Stewart. What were you guys what were you guys' favorite planes to fly?
We'll take Mr. Stewart. Go ahead.
I had two of them, and we're going back to World War II now. We're going back to the 1940s there, but I liked the P51 for the job that we were doing. It was a very fine aircraft. It was very agile, very acrobatic, and the only thing I didn't like about it was a fragile airplane. It couldn't take much punishment, and if it got hit by a piece of a shell or a hard landing or something like that, the plane could smash up pretty easily, and the pilot could be hurt. The other plane that I flew that I liked very much was the P47 Thunderbolt, and that plane there, you could go ahead and slam it with a sledgehammer. It would come back. It had 18 cylinders, and they could blow one cylinder out, and that plane will still bring you home. It could get hit by a shell there, and it was just so sturdy. It was very, very powerful. And those of you who know about the modern aircraft that we have, it reminded me of the A-10 fighter. It was just a rugged plane like that. So it depended on the mission that I was flying on. If I was flying on a bomber escort mission, I'd take the P-51. If I were flying on a ground support mission where, I might be skip bombing or strafing or something like that, I'd take the P-47.
And for me, it was I've got two of them as well. The C-130 for the military. And I like that plane just because it was very versatile and it was a very forgiving aircraft. Like Colonel Stewart was saying, you can slam that thing into the ground. It had these big, beefy tires. You can bounce from thrust reversals. You can take off from a dirt field. The crew was 6 people on board. And, once you landed, you had a lot of people to have fun with. And the mission was the best for me. I like doing airdrops. So we load up a lot of stuff in the back of the plane, open the cargo compartment while we're flying, and that stuff we kick it right out. We have guys that'll jump out, the paratroopers. That was very fun for me to see. So it was a very maneuverable airplane, for it to be so big. And it was just a great plane to fly. My civilian airplane would be my first love, the Cessna 172. That's where I learned to fly. That was my first plane I got, my PPL in, or my private pilot certificate. And it's very slow. It's very controlled. You can do stalls. You can do falls. It's very easy to land. And it's it's a VFR plane. And that's what, a lot of what we love about pilots is just going out, VFR, having a good time, just going to go see the world. So those would be my two.
All right, thank you. I think we have time for one, maybe two more questions.
I have one more too.
Go ahead, Jordan.
And again, this is for Mr. Vaught and Mr. Stewart. What was your most memorable missions?
Mine was a mission that we made to, I think it was my 37th mission, something like that, but we were on a bomber escort mission to the Danube area in Austria. And the bombers had released their bombs, and 7 of us who were in the escort there were designated to go on what's known as a fighter sweep. And a fighter sweep is we could leave the bombers there and we would look for targets of opportunity. And these targets of opportunity, since we were up around the Danube there, was to go ahead and shoot at river barges on the shore there, freight trains that we might see running along. And there was the road traffic that you might shoot at there. Anything to interrupt the war effort that the Axis powers, the enemy had at the time there. We went on this fighter sweep, and we were intercepted by a horde of enemy planes, Focke-Wulf 190s. And as a result of it, the 7 of us who were flying along, 3 of us got shot down. One of them made it back to friendly territory in Yugoslavia. The second person that got shot down, he was killed instantly. And the third person that shot down, his name was Walter Manning. He was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He managed to parachute out of his plane there, but when he landed, there was a mob on the ground waiting for him, and they took him to the local jailhouse, put him in the jailhouse, and I guess he thought he was pretty safe from there on, but he wasn't. About 2 nights later, another mob formed, and they broke in the jailhouse, and they beat Walter up pretty badly, and then they took him out and they strung him up. They hung him from a lamppost. They lynched him.
Yeah, that's horrible. We are getting short on time, and I don't know if StreamYard's going to cut us off at 1:40, but that's what we scheduled for. So we'll do part 2 another time and get Major Vaught's answer. We have a short video to play as we leave, and we thank you all for participating. Remember, there are modules on our YouTube channel that will talk about different careers in aviation and aerospace. We'll be adding to those modules throughout the year, so keep checking back for those modules. So thank you all for coming, and we'll talk to you soon.
Contact, joystick back, sail into the blue. Loyal sons of the 99th, brave and tried and true, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis lines, fight, 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 fighting 99. Rat-tat-tat, down in flames they go. Withering fire from the 99, sent them down below, for we are heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis lines, fight, 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 fighting 99.